When people discuss the Night King in Game of Thrones, most conversations focus on his war against humanity, his army of the dead, or his dramatic battles against dragons and great warriors. Many viewers assume that every living person was equally important to him, and that his goal was simply to destroy everything in his path. The series, however, repeatedly suggests something more specific. Beneath the endless march south stood a single objective that shaped many of his decisions. Among all the members of House Stark, one individual mattered far more than the others. The one Stark the Night King truly wanted was Bran Stark. At first glance, this idea may seem surprising. Jon Snow fought the White Walkers longer than almost anyone else. Arya Stark ultimately struck the killing blow. Sansa Stark became a major political leader in the North. Yet none of them occupied the Night King's attention the way Bran did. Throughout the final seasons, the story consistently points toward Bran as the central target. The Night King altered his movements, accepted major risks, and brought his entire invasion to Winterfell because Bran was there. To understand why Bran became so important, it is necessary to look beyond military strategy. The Night King was not merely conquering territory. He represented a force tied to memory, history, and the ancient struggle between life and death. Bran, after becoming the Three-Eyed Raven, also became connected to the accumulated memory of the world. Their conflict therefore existed on a deeper level than a normal war. It was not simply a battle for land. It was a battle over the survival of human history itself. The turning point came when Bran completed his transformation into the Three-Eyed Raven. Before that, he was an important Stark boy with unusual abilities. Afterward, he became something much larger. He carried knowledge stretching across generations. Through visions, he could witness the past, observe distant events, and preserve truths that others had forgotten. This made him uniquely valuable to the living and uniquely dangerous to the Night King. The series directly addresses this connection during preparations for the Battle of Winterfell. Bran explains that the Night King has tried many times to erase the world's memory. The Three-Eyed Raven serves as the keeper of that memory. As the new Three-Eyed Raven, Bran becomes the living archive of humanity. If the Night King destroyed him, more than a single person would be lost. The collective story of mankind would lose its greatest guardian. This explanation helps make sense of several events that otherwise appeared disconnected. Earlier in the story, Bran experiences visions while learning beyond the wall. During one of these encounters, the Night King physically marks him. That moment is crucial because it establishes a direct link between them. The mark allows the Night King to locate Bran and bypass magical protections. More importantly, it demonstrates that Bran is already occupying the Night King's attention long before the final season begins. The attack on the cave of the Three-Eyed Raven further supports this interpretation. The Night King and his forces relentlessly pursue Bran during his training. The assault results in the death of the previous Three-Eyed Raven and forces Bran to escape before completing his education. The sequence is significant because the Night King is not chasing a king, a general, or a dragon. He is chasing the person destined to inherit the role of humanity's memory keeper. Some fans have argued that Jon Snow was actually the Night King's primary enemy. After all, Jon repeatedly opposed the White Walkers and united people against them. He survived Hardhome, led the mission beyond the Wall, and became the face of resistance in the north. Yet the Night King's behavior suggests that Jon was an obstacle rather than the ultimate objective. Whenever opportunities arose, the Night King often chose progress toward his larger goal instead of becoming fixated on Jon personally. Even during their most famous encounters, the Night King rarely abandons his broader mission. At Hardhome, he demonstrates power and gathers more dead for his army. Beyond the Wall, he gains an undead dragon that helps breach the wall itself. These actions strengthen his campaign. Jon matters because he stands in the way, But Bran matters because he represents something the Night King specifically seeks to eliminate. The journey to Winterfell provides the clearest evidence. Winterfell was not simply another fortress. It was Bran's home and the place where he waited for the Night King. The defenders understood this reality. Their strategy centered on using Bran as bait, because they believed the Night King would come for him personally. This was not speculation from a single character. It became the foundation of the entire battle plan. When the Night King finally arrives at Winterfell, his actions reinforce that expectation. He does not remain behind his armies. He advances toward Bran himself. After the dead overwhelm much of the castle, he enters the God's Wood where Bran waits beneath the weirwood tree. This scene reveals the culmination of a pursuit that has lasted for years. The Night King is not searching for Sansa, Jon, or any military target. He is moving directly toward Bran. The symbolism of the God's Wood encounter is equally important. The weirwood trees are deeply connected to ancient memory, northern traditions, and the mystical powers associated with the three-eyed raven. By approaching Bran in that location, the Night King is effectively confronting the living embodiment of history at one of its most sacred sites. The moment carries meaning beyond warfare. It represents an attempt to erase the past and ensure that no record of humanity survives. Another reason Bran stands out among the Starks is that he possesses knowledge unavailable to almost anyone else. Through his visions, he uncovers secrets hidden across centuries. He learns the truth about Jon Snow's parentage and gains insight into events that shaped Westeros. Knowledge has always been powerful in the world of Game of Thrones. Bran's abilities elevate that power to an unprecedented level. If left alive, he preserves truths that cannot easily be destroyed. From the Night King's perspective, this makes Bran extraordinarily dangerous. Armies can be defeated. Castles can fall. Even dragons can die. Memory is different. As long as knowledge survives, future generations can learn, rebuild, and understand what came before. Bran therefore represents continuity. He connects the living world to its past. Eliminating him would strike at the foundation of that continuity. The final confrontation also highlights a fascinating contrast. The Night King commands the dead, creatures stripped of identity and personal history. Bran safeguards memory, identity, and history. One side reduces individuals to silent servants. The other preserves the stories that make individuals meaningful. Their conflict can be viewed as a struggle between forgetting and remembering. In that sense, Bran was always the logical target. Of course, the Night King never achieves his objective. Just as he prepares to kill Bran, Arya Stark intervenes and ends the threat permanently. Her victory becomes one of the defining moments of the series. Yet Arya's triumph does not change who the Night King wanted most. In fact, it confirms it. She defeats him precisely because he is focused on Bran. The entire sequence revolves around his attempt to reach the three-eyed raven. Looking back across the series, the evidence points consistently in one direction. The marking of Bran, the destruction of the cave, the pursuit across the north, the strategy at Winterfell, and the final approach to the God's Wood all support the same conclusion. The Night King's war against humanity was vast, but his personal target was remarkably specific. Among all the Starks, Bran occupied a unique place in his plans. That is what makes the relationship between these two characters so compelling. The Night King was more than a supernatural conqueror, and Bran was more than a young noble from Winterfell. They became opposing symbols in an ancient conflict. One embodied oblivion, while the other embodied remembrance. One sought to erase the story of humanity, while the other carried that story within him. In the end, the answer is clear. Jon Snow was the warrior who rallied resistance. Arya Stark was the assassin who delivered the final blow. Sansa Stark secured the future of the North. But Bran Stark was the one the Night King truly wanted. He was the keeper of memory, the heir to the three-eyed raven, and the living record of the world the Night King hoped to erase. Seen through that lens, the final battle becomes less about survival alone and more about knowledge. The Night King marched across continents for a purpose. At its center stood Bran, the Stark preserving memory. This is the end of today's video about the Night King. If you found it interesting, hit the like button. Leave a comment. Share and subscribe for more content like this.